All right. Welcome to the Parent Advocacy Resource Team for all ages and stages of parenthood. I'm Jillian Lama, founder of Body You Crave Life and Weight Loss Coaching. And I'm the host for today's special episode with our guest, Haley Plumley. So as part of the Parent Advocacy Resource Team, we partner to create a network of trusted professionals to provide families with solutions to navigate the journey of life and parenthood. We do all of this through education, advocacy, empowerment, and connection. So welcome to the show here, Haley.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
So Haley Plumley is a financial advisor with Edward Jones. She has over 16 years of experience in the financial industry. So early on in her career, she helped clients structure finances to manage short-term goals. And over time, she realized just how unique our financial goals can be and how they can often change. So now she partners with clients to go even deeper. She helps prioritize which goals are most important for your family, and she builds personalized strategies that will help you grow your family's individual needs. So thank you so much. I'm sure you are going to be such a wealth of knowledge and information for all of us.
Thank you. I'll try.
Yeah. No pressure.
No pressure.
Okay. So we all go through these moments in parenthood where we're like, did I just say that? Did that just come out of my mouth? And we have those moments where we say things that we never thought we would say before. Right. Tell us one of your favorite or most cherished moment and experience with that.
Oh, if I had to say right off the cuff, one thing I said, I will never say that to my children. It was because I said so. I hated it. Like what you hate as a child, you're like, really? Why do you get to say so? Yeah. So as a child, I was always like, I'll never say that. I will never be that parent.
Yeah.
I stuck to it for longer than I thought I would. But they get older and they get their own personalities, and then I can deal with a couple of whys. But when it's a 6 or 7 year old and they're trying to tell you why, then you're like, you know what? It's because I said so. That's why. And then it became my favorite phrase because there's just an age group. There's just at some point they're just not quite old enough sometimes to reason with them. You can explain it to them.
Right.
But if they don't have the mental capacity yet to understand the depth of why, are you doing yourself any good? I mean, you're giving them this reason that's just creating more questions. And so, yes, because I said so, or you'll understand when you get older, oh, they hate it.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's the thing.
Right. Well, and I love that you share that. And it reminds me of a time when, let's see, so Caleb's only a year and a half. So he's still pretty young. I'm sure we're going to get to that phase because I've also told myself like, no, I can explain. It's okay. Like I'm going to give him better reasons. It's not just because I said so. And I'm this like dictator parent. I'm sure we'll get to that phase, but I remember reading an article about how, like, if you don't tell the child no, and you just redirect them, or if it's like a yes and first, or it's like, you don't say no, then they won't say no back to you. And so our babysitter had commented and she was like, yeah, he doesn't really say no or fight me on things. And I was like, yeah, I have this theory that if you just don't say no to them, then they won't say no back to you. And then it was like later that week where I'm like, no, stop it. No. Like it all just totally went out the window. And I was like, I may need to rethink this.
Next week your babysitter is going to be like, I don't know what happened, but
right.
That's funny.
If she did notice, she didn't tell me. So we're fine. But these are just some of the kind of fun parenting moments that we go through. And that is what Part is here to help you with, for all of the crazy, the fun, the messy, and everything in between. So this episode, though, is all to get to know Haley and how she can help give us some little words of wisdom and some nuggets and things that we can start to do to get more control over our financial health and peace of mind. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started in this field and why you do what you do?
Okay, perfect. So my journey into this field, and I'm going to try not to get super long-winded because I do tend to do that. I get super excited about it. It's really not a sexy topic, but I get excited about it.
Right.
So many years ago, like when I was 16, I've always worked and I've always been really good at saving. And I just really thought, well, this is just normal. This is what people do. You work, you save, you work, you save. And as I got older, and you start seeing your friends work and not save, or you come into adulthood and you realize that financially your previous habits have created a mindset for you to save or to work towards this or work towards that. And I started realizing that that quality was something I was very fortunate and blessed to have, because saving is not an easy thing to do. Mm-hmm. It's a lifestyle, it's a mm-hmm. mindset, mm-hmm. and it takes a lot of willpower. And mm-hmm. so over time, I thought I can help people do this. So I think I want to go into financial advising mm-hmm. because I'm fascinated by the market, even though we can speculate all we want. At the end of the day, nobody really ever fully knows what the market's going to do from Monday to Tuesday. Right. So it's frazzy, like brain frying. I think the word I'm looking for is frazzling, if that's a word. I'm making it a word. It's a word now.
Yes, it is.
So you would just, there's times I'm like, oh, that's stupid. Why do I want to do that? But I love it. And so I kept kind of circling back around to it. So I ended up going to UNCW in Wilmington, and I got my degree in finance. But by the time I came out of college, I was married, I was starting a family. He was military, so we were moving. And I really just needed a consistent, steady schedule. The best way to keep my foot in this industry was to kind of go into banking. So that's what I did. And I did that for 15 years. But I kept my eyes on Edward Jones because I had a lot of friends that worked here. The culture of the company was really good. And I knew that when my life got into the right place, I wanted to circle back around. And so over the years, you get used to your work-life balance. I was good at my job in banking. I did it for a long time. It was comfortable. Mm-hmm. And that was fine, except what I was finding is I was watching clients that I helped open checking accounts 10, 15 years ago. I've watched them build their lives. I've watched them build their businesses. And unfortunately, by the time I left banking, I was in foreclosures and bankruptcies. And so I was watching the whole process full circle. Mm-hmm. And I was realizing, if I could have gotten in front of them earlier with their savings and their finance, not just their checking accounts, but their deeper, like in your core. It's not just about how much money can I make if I throw money at the market. I mean, you can invest all kinds of places, but at the end of the day, what's important in your core? And that's different for everybody. Like you and I might like the same things, but when you really get down to what are priorities in our life, whether it's having the biggest house on the block, whether it's paying off debt, whether it's spending time with friends and family, our health. I mean, there's all these things that are priorities. So it really comes down to taking a step back and thinking less about, can I make a quick buck? And more about, here are all the things on my plate and my family's plate, because that too looks different for everybody. And it can change at the drop of a hat. I mean, so as these things, I started realizing over the years how quickly all of our financial goals are different and how fast they can change. And so financial advising for me gives me an opportunity to take a step back with the clients and say, before we talk about your investing, let's talk about what is important to you. What does your family need to accomplish? And what is the best way to move forward to make sure that you can reach those goals?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to throw a curveball question here at you because you brought something up that I'm like, ooh, this is interesting. So my husband was very much the saver, and I have had to loosen his death grip around our checking and savings account. And he's done a very good job of that at most times. But it was like, we could have, tens of thousands of dollars in savings. And he would be like, that's for the savings account. You can never touch that under any circumstances. And it was there to have for emergencies, but nothing could ever be emergency enough to use it. Right. And then there was me, which was very much more of the spender. And it was like, oh no, we need extra money for groceries. Duh, of course I go into the savings for that. It was stuff like that. So how do you reconcile to people with very different money strategies? Because I know money is one of the big things that couples fight about. It's one of the top three, and spending versus saving can be very hard. So how do you help clients with that? I imagine that comes up in part of this conversation when you have two people who maybe are used to two different lifestyles or two different norms.
How to merge those? You're right. That's a curveball. It's a hard question because at the end of the day, I can't make you do anything. I can educate you and I can show you resources on how you're spending today, like all the little things you're doing, how it's affecting long-term goals and long-term things. And I can educate you on that. That's really all I can do. And I can offer you advice. But at the end of the day, it is up to the couple to come together and say, okay, if you're a really big spender and I'm a really big saver, how can we meet in the middle? And sometimes that looks like carving some stuff off and saying, okay, Mr. Big Spender, so we can put the bulk of your savings here. But for her emotional needs, which are equally important, let's carve off this little chunk and she can grow this any way she wants to. And so at that point, it's about kind of looking at how you can separate things. I mean, not saying they can't be joined, but how you might have some things over here that are earmarked for you and your spending habits, and some things over here that are earmarked for him and his spending habits, so that each of you have ownership and accountability for what's yours. And then if you want to keep spending and it depletes, well, I'm going to show you that. I'm going to say, those new shoes, well, this is what it did here. So were they worth it to you? And so you start seeing like, how valuable was that purchase really? How did it make me feel when my account dropped, or in his case grew? Maybe it just gives him energy, so I'm gonna do it again. So a lot of it's your own mindset. All I can really do is educate you and give advice.
No, I love that. I think that's like a great approach to do it, in terms of having, kind of some like trying to give people what they want, and like finding that middle ground and that negotiation. Because you're right. Like, how many times have we walked into Target, spent a couple $100s, and then you're kind of like, where did it go? What did I buy? You don't like, nothing really came of it, but you'll notice like a couple $100 adds up, and then it's a couple thousand, it's a couple more thousand. And it can build like negatively like that in terms of our spending, or it can build and grow positively, like what you, I imagine, do with clients in terms of the investing aspect. So tell me more about like, what do people think you do? What do you wish that they knew that maybe was a little bit different? Like, what do you really do? Fill us in on that, because I'm sure a lot of people have ideas around like what it means to be a financial advisor.
Right. That's actually a fun question. I feel like a lot of clients think that we do budgeting, and that we kind of, back to what you were saying a minute ago, how do you help them? I can't make you stick to a budget. There are financial coaches and life coaches that are definitely more geared to helping people create a budget and really stick to it. Where I come in, and things I feel like a lot of people don't realize that we do, is it's not just, it goes back to my original speech. Hate to get on that soapbox again, but it's really not about just throwing money at the market. It really is about your bigger picture. So not just, oh, hey, you have this extra money because you sold your house, and so now you're sitting on a chunk of change. Let's do something with it, make you some money. It really is about taking a step back and looking at your whole picture. And I think what a lot of people don't think about when they think, oh, I need a financial plan, they're thinking a lot of times, I need a budget, or I need to know, am I good on my retirement account? Do I have enough in there? But it's really so much bigger than that. So one of the most common questions I get is, should I put more money into my retirement accounts right now, or should I open a college savings for my child? Well, I can't answer that question here, because it's not going to be an accurate answer for everyone listening. It is truly a different answer for every family. Your income levels can change that. There's all kinds of things that can happen. Some people are set to get inheritances down the road. There's just a lot of moving parts that are going to affect that answer. But it is a very valid concern. And it's definitely probably one of the most common questions I get is basically, do I take care of myself, or do I take care of my child? It's really looking at the bigger picture. And then for your longer term things, we're rolling along in life. We're working really hard. We're thinking, great, I sat down with a financial planner. He or she said, my retirement account looks fine. Except, did anybody ask you, what is your plan when you quit working? And you have saved maybe excessively more than you need, which is great. Except, how are you going to pass that on to your children without passing them a tax burden? What does that look like for your beneficiaries and your heirs? So how can we structure all this wonderful wealth that you have accumulated through hard work? How can we make sure that we structure that so that when it passes on, your children or your beneficiaries get as much of your allotted amount that you're trying to leave them as they can? So it's really a much bigger picture than I think most people account for. Because most of us tend to think about, it's not that we don't think bigger, but we think in a lot of ways, we think in the moment, because we feel the moment. We feel if we're struggling to pay bills, or we feel if we're saving really well, or so we're thinking about, am I doing well right now? But you really need to expand that and say, okay, you're doing great now, but this is on the horizon, and it's one of those I'll do it tomorrow items. 20 years passes and you're like, oh, I do that. Now I'm in the moment and I'm not prepared. So it's really thinking much bigger.
Right. Yeah. So would you have any, like, what would be like the first place to start if somebody realizes like, oh, I've been living more in the moment or more just kind of like short term with what can we do this year, next year, and not thinking more long term? Are there a couple of like questions that they should be thinking about or considering to kind of get them thinking more long term? And what do you even mean by long term? Like maybe we can put like a number or a range to that too.
That's a great question. So long term could look different for different people, but when I say long term, I'm thinking 10 years and more out.
Okay.
I'm thinking, what do you need retirement to look like? Are you happy to just maintain the lifestyle you have?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so maybe you're doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if you said, no, I know when I retire that I want to buy a house and move to Florida, or maybe I want to buy a camper and travel the world, and that's going to estimatedly cost me XYZ amount a year. You plan for those goals. If someone came to me and they were in the situation that you just said, where they kind of feel like they've been living a little too short term, how can I get a handle on things so that I can move forward? My off the cuff to get yourself started nuggets would be, first of all, I think a nice solid budget is one of the most important things you can do for yourself. It is not easy to always stick to a budget, especially if you have the flexibility to not necessarily stick to one, but you would be doing yourself a huge favor to really take a couple months, maybe 6 months, and really evaluate your statements and categorize your stuff. And it takes a little time, takes a little legwork, but at the end of the day, it's very eye-opening how much you really spent on gas.
Right. Yeah.
And where you kind of splurged.
Yeah.
When you really thought, well, I don't splurge much. And when you put it on paper and you really see it, it dawns on you how much you really do eat out, or you really do splurge, or, you know, and when you see what you could have done with that money, a lot of times I feel like it changes a person's mindset when they see the difference in, okay, had I not splurged this many times this month, had that been invested, what that could have looked like 3, 4, 5 years down the road. So it's not to say don't ever splurge, but sometimes it might make you kind of reevaluate and think a little differently about where you're spending your money and how important that is to you. So I would say budget is one of my, absolutely, to get yourself started. I think everybody needs a budget, because that's a great starting point. And then before you put any money in the market, my suggestion would be emergency savings. The average person needs about 3 to 6 months. That's another reason the having a solid budget is important. You need to know, if I lost my job tomorrow and it took me a minute to find a new job, could I support myself without losing my house for at least, I mean, I'm a kind of conservative person myself, so I always veer closer to the 6 month. But again, that depends on each family and what other resources you have that you could tap into should you have an event like that. But the idea really is to make sure that your emergencies are covered before you come off of any additional money for investing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. That is so helpful. I mean, it's great. I love talking about these things. My husband loves budgeting and budgets, and I call them spending plans, because budget really, like, it's one of those that like puts my stomach in knots. And so
it's like saying diet. Nobody likes diet.
It's totally well. And I think it's so funny, because I would have like diet plans with my money, or like around what a budget should look like, or diet plans with my time and how I should be. Like, we can have so many expectations, but like you said, of like just getting really clear on what are you spending money on first. And then you can go through and look at, okay, what would I like to be spending money on? And just trusting that it can come down in increments. Like, you don't have to go from like $1,000 in food to like 400 overnight. Like, really looking at, okay, can we cut back $100 this month in this area? Like even little things, like maybe picking the cereal that's on sale, or the hummus that's 2 for $5 instead of 4 for 1, like 1 for 4. Like, just little cuts. But you know, if we have time, I want to add one more little thing that will help with what you were just saying about the budget, the diet, the whatever. Write down a list of priorities that you have, things that you want to accomplish, and put them in order. Again, it might not be overnight, right? Because you can't pay off debt overnight. But again, once you write down what's really important to you, and what tweaked me to add this is when you said, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. You just said it. Oh, where do I want to be spending? Where am I spending versus where I want to be spending? When you really get your values and what's important to you, priority list,
and then you get a good handle on your budget and you see where you're actually spending versus where your heart is.
Yeah.
Once you get a mindset like that, then it becomes easier, I feel like, to stick to a budget because you see the value in what you're doing and where it's going to enrich your life versus every month wondering where your money went.
Right.
Because that's more of an empty feeling versus a gratifying feeling.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been so wonderful. Thank you for sharing all of this. I mean, I could talk to you for hours and hours about this, but we'll save that for another time. So where can people learn more about you or get in contact with you?
Okay. So I believe there'll be a link down below that has my contact information. If you want to just kind of snoop me a little bit and check me out, you can always follow my Facebook page. It's Haley Plumley, Financial Advisor. It should come up for you. But as far as contact, you can call my office or email me anytime.
Yes. Wonderful. And do you have a best self-care tip for us before we sign off here today?
Ooh, best self-care tip. I guess it's different for everybody, but for me, I like outdoors. And I think there's something about the fresh air that just releases your endorphins. I mean, even if it's raining outside, I feel like it just does something for you mentally. So if I had to give a self-care tip, I would say take 10 or 15 minutes to yourself, maybe at least once, if you could do it 2 or 3 times a day, to just step outside, breathe some fresh air, get out from in front of the computer, cut your phone off, and just 10 minutes of me time. You deserve it. You owe it to yourself, and just give yourself a reset.
Yes.
Come back with clarity.
I love that. Yeah. I'm with you. I love being outside. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Haley, for being here with us. The Parent Advocacy Resource Team is a partnership with parents to navigate the journey of life and being a family. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.